Now to the search and rescue in the condo collapse in Surfside, Florida. Chilling new video surfacing, shot just 7 minutes before the building came down. A look inside the building's parking garage and what appears to be a stream of water falling to the floor, as well as debris on the ground. Crews are still working round the clock. Florida is now asking the federal government for relief crews as they prepare for possible tropical weather. And tonight, a survivor's haunting call to her brother on the night of the collapse. Here's ABC's Victor Oquendo.
Tonight, chilling new video shot just 7 minutes before the deadly condo collapse in Surfside, Florida. Adriana Sarmiento shot the video. In it, you can see water falling into the garage below the building, as well as debris on the ground. She says she tried to alert the residents about the danger.
Weight builds up as you come down the tower. So those columns on the first floor are essentially supporting the entire tower.
And if they're unstable?
If there's an issue with the columns, with the foundations, those are all very critical elements to the stability of the building.
6 more bodies were recovered from the rubble today, including 2 children. 18 people are now confirmed dead.
All right, so here's some pictures they took. I'm going to kind of zoom in on these. Here you can see a chunk of the corner of the concrete column inside the parking garage is missing. We know it's in the parking garage because they say it, and we also know it because it's painted yellow, which is which is to help people driving in the parking garage to avoid it. Here we can see, I'm going to try to zoom in more so that hopefully the pictures are a little better. Here we can see a pretty severe concrete spalling on the surface of the parking garage. I mean, that's extraordinarily, pretty severe. I mean, I rarely see this. I've seen this many times, but it's pretty rare to see it in a building that has let it get this bad, I should say. So that's an interesting observation. These are pretty severe concrete surface spalls. Here's their comments on it. MC, which is short for Morabito Consultants. MC visual observations revealed that many of the previous garage concrete repairs are failing, resulting in additional concrete cracking, spalling, and leaching of calcium carbonate deposits. Calcium carbonate is it's that white powdery substance that we call efflorescence, and it's just proof that water is passing through your structure. At the underside, and I can explain the chemistry behind that, but that's for another video. At the underside of the entrance pool deck where the slab had been epoxy injected, new cracks were radiating from the originally repaired cracks. Yeah, of course. So here's a couple things that they point out, which is very true and which is very problematic in our industry. So they say that they found previous concrete garage concrete repairs that were failing. Well, that's because a lot of engineers and contractors don't know what they're doing, and they do a half effort or completely incorrect job of repairing the structure. And then the problem this creates is that the damage is still occurring under their patches, but the building will generally look pretty good. And so this creates a problem for the client because they say, oh, well, we just paid to have the building restored. It looks good. But meanwhile, it's just pure cancer underneath all of these new patches and things. So MC observed that a lot of these patches, the concrete was failing underneath the patches. The other thing, too, is I see epoxy injection of cracks totally abused in this industry, where they use it to try to stop water intrusion from the plaza deck down into the parking garage below. But epoxy injecting cracks is really like a structural repair, and it only has certain circumstances in which it's useful. When you see this phrase, new cracks were radiating from the originally repaired cracks, it's like, well, no duh. So what happens is the original cracks before they got epoxy injected were caused by thermal expansion and contraction. Well, then when you epoxy inject them, the concrete still needs to shrink and expand, but now you've sealed up that relief point that it had, and so what it will do is it will crack right next to it, and it will create a new relief point. So it looks like it's basically radiating from there. Here's some photos of the ceiling. Here is the epoxy injected cracks, and they've left the ports in there, and they didn't clean, whoever that contractor was didn't clean it up and didn't finish it. This is work prior to 2018, because remember, this report was done in 2018, and it's commenting on that. Here you can see rust coming through cracks in the garage ceiling, and you can see these lines. These are essentially stalactites, okay, which is a formation of calcium carbonate coming down from the ceiling. So it takes a lot of water to create 6-inch long and 3-inch long and 2-inch long stalactites. You can also see the stalactites on these photos over here on the left, and then you can see more rusting and stuff on the ceiling of the garage, of the parking garage. So that's essentially the bulk of their report. There's lots of commentary in there. One of the things I didn't really find in the report was a statement stating the severity of the life safety concern. That's something that we always put in all of our reports. We put it in writing, but that's not to say that Morabito didn't come in after the fact and send some sort of letter or a certified letter or had a communication, because sometimes engineers think, okay, well, we're about to restore the building anyway, so I'm not going to tell them it's like this giant life safety thing because we're going to get the building fixed next year anyway. And then the client never calls you back. The board of directors. And so then what you would need to do is you would need to send a certified letter saying, hey, listen, we failed to tell you in our report how serious this is. This is super serious. You need to take care of it right away. So Morabito may have done that, and they may have done their due diligence on that. But I can tell you from looking at their photos and reading the language in their report, this was a building that was severely damaged. It's most buildings that I restore, and I think I've said this in the second video, don't look this bad when I finally get there. Sometimes they do, but rarely. Okay, and then here is the form that they had to fill out for the town of Surfside. And just wanted to note two interesting things that the same engineer who did the other report filled out this form for the town. And under the concrete framing system, which is essentially talking about the main skeleton and main structural members of the building, it says general condition description, and this is the only description given. Overall, the concrete framing is in good condition with the aforementioned items requiring attention. He mentions various, concrete spalls and stuff that need fixed. But this statement, overall concrete framing is in good condition, this is going to end up being problematic for them, given now that the building has collapsed 3 years later. But there is going to be a defensible argument from Morabito saying, well, yeah, it was in good condition in 2018, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it was in good condition in 2021, right? So they're going to have some defense there. And then, of course, where it talks about rebar corrosion, check the appropriate line. And again, this is a preformed fill-out form, I'm assuming from the town of Surfside. But they went ahead and checked significant, but patching will suffice. The problem I have with this isn't that it's technically incorrect. The problem I have with it is that the way the layperson reads this. If you're a board of directors member, okay, and you just got this report with all these pictures and all this stuff, and you didn't understand anything, and you don't understand what I-cry means, and then you also get a copy of this report at the same time, and it says overall the concrete framing is in good condition, and patching will suffice, you are all of a sudden left with a very de-escalated or de-elevated level of concern, and you may be motivated to say, well, let's just kick this down the road another year or two until things become in bad condition, right? And then, of course, that creates the problems. In this report, though, they included some additional photos that they didn't include in the other one, so I thought it would be good for us to look at those. Here is some more concrete cracking in the ceiling of the parking garage underneath the building, and the rust that's coming through, the stalactites that are forming. I'm sorry, the resolution isn't very good. This is as good as I got. Here you've got another pretty severe crack with spalling, so that's kind of an interesting observation there. I'm not sure what we're seeing here. I think what we're seeing is that there's so much water coming through here that the water's spreading along the ceiling and then leaving efflorescence in different shapes and lines and stuff. But again, that's a lot of water coming through this plaza deck. Here's another typical, as they mentioned in the report, typical column damage at the ground floor, and you can see exposed rebar in there. Here's some better pictures of that surface spalling in the parking garage. I mean, guys, that's if you're a layperson and you look at that and you're like, that doesn't look good. You're right, it doesn't look good. That's really severe spalling. This is bad stuff right here. And you can see some more of it. And everywhere there's spalling, you can see the rebar is rusted in the slab. Okay, so here is closer to the ground floor. They have these soffit boxes, which are essentially like wood framed because the architect in 1979 thought it would be a great idea. I can't give you any other explanation other than that. So there's this wood framed soffit box. It does not have a weep screed, so any water that soaks into the stucco and soaks into this box cannot weep out of the box. That water sits on top of this concrete column right here, and will cause corrosion damage to the concrete column. You can see that damage kind of over here, where we have the rust and we have this concrete that's spalling off of the slab edge there, and then you can see this line here, this little bump out line. This may just be unbonded stucco, but I suspect this is probably a large concrete spall at the top of this column. And again, remember what I talked about before, we need to be thinking in terms of columns, compression members, if we're talking a sudden collapse issue like this. Here we see other issues with paint, cracking, and you can see a paint blister here with water that's retained in it. So this building at some point may have been painted with a water impermeable paint, which I think is a terrible idea, but it was really popular in the 90s and early 2000s, but it retains water. So anytime there's a crack, water gets in, but then water can't get out. So that water is held against your concrete, just damaging it. Let's see. Okay, so here's looking up at one of the slabs. I think it might be a balcony slab. You can see that so much water is coming through this concrete that it's peeling the paint off the bottom. Okay, it's kind of a weird angle, but you're looking at the bottom side, and you can begin to see the rebar patterns in here. You can see these dark lines. This is rebar beginning to show through. Here you can see, which we couldn't see on the Google images, but you can see this line right here. This is like an entire slab edge spall. And I think if I recall correctly, in their 2018 report, they said that like 25% of all the slab edges were spalled and in need of repair. So that's pretty significant. And this is an example of what that looks like when that concrete falls off. You can see all the bottom mat rebar towards the slab edge, and it's all rusted, it's all expanding, and it blew the concrete off. And I mean, this takes a while, and this takes a lot of ignoring it and putting your head in the sand in order for a building to get to this point. I'm just being honest with you. Here's a steel beam on the roof, and it's rusted. This is literally not a significant amount of rust that would concern me. So I'm not. It may look ugly, but steel. There's a lot of steel here, and it looks pretty good to me. So I'm not going to comment much more on that. This is the roof. It looks like it was a ballasted type roof, possibly. It's a little hard to tell. But again, you know, the report of which this came from said that the roof was actually in really good condition, and the only concerns they had were some cracks at the parapets. So what I couldn't figure out is from 2018, with the roof being in relatively good condition, the maintenance department in the report was also cited as saying that there was no known roof leaks. It really just is. I find it odd that they would start their restoration project on the roof. I'm not sure. I think that's something we'll find out later, but I think it's something that will make sense later on, maybe when we get more information.
That's out.